My mom said the family party was for the kids, but the whole house was a stage for them to publicly shame me. They played a game called Spot the Failure with me as the punchline. My nephew asked me why I smelled poor. My aunt took a video. I smiled through it all because I had my own surprise waiting. And when the power cut at midnight, the screaming started. Turn it off. Please, turn it off. I'm Roslyn, I live in a second-floor walk-up in Mount Vernon, New York. My mom lives in Larchmont in a house that looks like it was pulled from a Hallmark catalog, white brick, wraparound porch, immaculately trimmed hedges. My sisters live nearby, and both still cling to the illusion of our perfect family. Miriam, the middle child, is the face of suburban success: 2 kids, a nice house, a husband who's never home, and a wine habit she won't admit to. Phoebe, the eldest, is the high achiever. Ivy League, corporate job, flawless wardrobe. Cold as granite. I've always been the odd one. I got pregnant at 19. Married at 20. Divorced by 27. No college degree, just a stack of community college credits I can't afford to finish. I manage a bookstore in New Rochelle. I make enough to scrape by with my son Eli, but barely. My family doesn't see resilience in that. They see failure. So, when I got the call, I already knew what I was walking into. The day of the party was hot, sticky. Eli was excited. He's 6, still in the magical age when balloons and face paint are enough to make a day perfect. He picked out his favorite Spider-Man shirt and talked about cotton candy the entire car ride. I wore a simple summer dress I'd found in a thrift store the month before. Blue, floral, with a small tear at the hem I had stitched up myself. It was clean. It was enough. We arrived around 4 p.m. My mom met us at the door. She air-kissed Eli, handed him a helium balloon, and then turned to me. I hope you didn't have to take the bus again, she said, eyes flicking down at my sandals. I drove, I replied, gently squeezing Eli's hand. Well, that's a relief. Her tone always leaves enough room for doubt, like she's disappointed I haven't failed just yet. The backyard was filled with folding chairs, children screaming, and adults sipping white wine out of acrylic glasses. Everything coordinated, color-themed, catered, choreographed. Phoebe spotted me first. She was by the appetizer table, laughing with a few of her friends. She waved, and then nudged Miriam. Miriam looked over, took in my dress, and whispered something that made Phoebe snort into her mimosa. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't have to. I took a deep breath and focused on Eli. He was already running toward the cookie decorating table. It was supposed to be a party for the kids. But then came the game. Around 7:30, just after the magician packed up, my Aunt Celestine gathered everyone into the living room. Let's play something fun for the grown-ups, she announced, holding a glass bowl filled with folded slips of paper. We're calling it Spot the Family Member. It'll be hilarious. I felt my stomach tighten. I knew that tone. They started with harmless facts. This person once fell off a treadmill at Crunch Fitness. Laughter. This person has a crush on their boss. Giggles. Then came the cards meant for me. This person dropped out of college twice. This person had their credit card declined at CVS. This person rents in Mount Vernon but tells people they live in New Rochelle. Laughter turned cruel. Sharp. Focused. My mother smiled behind her wine glass. My sisters laughed without hesitation. The kids didn't understand, but some of the adults looked at me with a hint of pity. I would have preferred rage. Pity is just another flavor of disrespect. Then came the final insult. My nephew Rylan, 6 years old, tugged on my sleeve. Auntie Rose, why do you smell like poor people? I froze. He said it so innocently. Like it was just another question about clouds or dinosaurs. Somewhere in the room, I heard Celestine laugh. She lifted her phone and pointed it at me. Oh my God, she said. Someone posted that. Priceless. I smiled. But it wasn't the kind of smile they expected. Because while they were laughing, I was waiting. Waiting for midnight. I nodded at Rylan and said, "That's a great question, buddy," with a smile that probably looked cracked around the edges. Inside, my hands were fists. My chest was tight. But I didn't flinch. That was what they wanted, to break me in front of an audience. Celestine kept filming, still giggling, swaying slightly from her third glass of wine. She zoomed in on my face. I knew she was going to post it in the family group chat or maybe even toss it up on her Facebook for laughs. I looked around the room and saw the faces of people who had known me since childhood, now pretending I was a clown at my own family circus. Miriam was whispering something to her husband, who chuckled with his eyes half-lidded, clearly halfway to drunk. Phoebe was busy showing one of her friends something on her phone, probably a meme or a screenshot. Maybe a picture of my apartment Eli accidentally texted into the family thread a few months ago. It wasn't the first time they'd humiliated me. But this time I was ready. I spent the next few hours pretending. Pretending I didn't hear every passive-aggressive jab. Pretending I didn't notice my mother assigning me to dish duty while Miriam and Phoebe laughed it up with their friends. Pretending I didn't see Phoebe's friend Sarah filming Eli singing on the karaoke mic, probably to mock him later. I smiled, I poured juice for the kids, I complimented the decorations. I even helped Miriam's youngest clean up when she spilled pink frosting all over the deck. All while waiting for the clock to tick closer to midnight. You see, 2 weeks before the party, I reached out to my ex-husband, Deshaun. We barely talk, co-parenting is cordial at best. But he's a cybersecurity engineer. Quiet. Detail-oriented. And very, very good at what he does. I told him everything, with no begging, just honesty. I even told him I didn't expect help. He called me the next day. I've seen how they treat you, Roz, he said. I'll send you something. What he sent was a black, compact portable media box, slightly larger than a power bank. He explained how to set it up, plug it into a TV's HDMI port, hide the power cord inside any standard outlet, and connect it to a remote app on my phone. The files would be loaded automatically. The content? Let's just say the skeletons my family kept locked in their designer closets were finally ready to dance. And I was the one controlling the music. Around 11:15 p.m., the kids were settling into the basement for their sleepover movie night. Blankets. Sleeping bags. Popcorn. Eli had already dozed off with his favorite stuffed dinosaur clutched against his chest. The adults had retreated to the living room. The wine was still flowing. So was the smugness. Miriam bragged about some PTA award. Phoebe discussed a work promotion. My mother droned on about a charity auction where she'd won a spa weekend for 2 in Connecticut. Nobody looked my way. I sat in the corner of the sectional couch, hands folded, smiling in place. It was the first time I felt still all night. Still, but alert. Like the silence right before the storm siren. Then, I reached into my bag and tapped the app on my phone. Power, off. The whole room went dark. Someone dropped a glass. There was the sound of a chair scraping. Oh, for God's sake, my mother snapped. The lights are on timers again, aren't they? But then, the television flickered on. Blue screen. Followed by a crisp white title in bold black font, Family Night, behind the scenes. It was subtle at first. A video clip of Miriam, clearly intoxicated, leaning against a bathroom wall at what looked like a wedding reception. Slurring, she confessed to cheating on her husband with the gym instructor. Not once. 5 times. And not even for the sex, she added, laughing. Just to feel alive. The room went still. Then another video, Phoebe, in her home office, camera apparently on during a Zoom call she didn't realize was being recorded. She's mocking a colleague for stuttering. Says he sounds like a broken AI. She then turns to someone off-screen, probably her boyfriend, and says, that guy will never be promoted unless we all die in a fire. The tension turned icy. What is this? My mother asked sharply, standing up. But the next slide answered her question, curated by Roslyn. The screen faded into an audio clip. Aunt Celestine, on the phone, venting to a friend about how kids with autism should be homeschooled and how those people ruin public education for everyone else. Oh my God, turn it off, she shrieked, lunging for the remote. But I had it. I stayed seated, calm, and controlled. I raised the remote in the air slightly and said, relax. It's just a game. Let's see who we can spot. The room exploded. Miriam ran to the TV, pulling at the cords. She couldn't find the source. The media box was buried behind decorative molding and attached to an internal outlet. Celestine grabbed at her phone, trying to block the screen. Phoebe stood frozen, pale, eyes locked on the screen as a photo slideshow began, text messages, screenshots, voice memos. All of it. Every insult, every two-faced moment, every crack in their perfect little world. The TV kept going. My mother didn't scream. Not at first. She stood completely still, eyes locked on the footage now playing of her, laughing with her golf club friends about how Rosalind's son probably qualifies for free lunch at school and how she only invites us to things out of guilt. That was when I saw the mask fall. Then, softly, turn it off. Please, turn it off. Her voice cracked. Still, I didn't move. Not yet. They were unraveling. I watched, quiet and steady, while the very foundation of their perfect little bubble cracked wide open. Miriam was frantically pulling at the HDMI cables in the back of the TV, but she didn't realize she was unplugging the DVD player instead. The footage just kept playing. The next scene? A WhatsApp voice note from her, sent to someone named Trent, saying that her son's ADHD was probably just karma for marrying a man with weak genes. Her husband, still half-buzzed on Chardonnay, sobered instantly. His expression didn't change, stone cold, but he stood up and walked out the front door. Just like that. Not a word. Phoebe had her phone in hand now, likely texting damage control to whoever mattered in her professional orbit. I could see her lips move silently, like she was praying. She wasn't. She was calculating. That's who Phoebe is, cold logic wrapped in designer perfume. But this wasn't a PR slip or a quiet office rumor. This was her recording mocking her company's diversity hires, saying one of them only got promoted because he checked every quota box. She could spin things. But this? Not tonight. And Celestine. Celestine was sobbing now. She'd sat down in one of the accent chairs and just repeated, no, 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 under her breath like it was a spell to undo the last 10 minutes. The footage ended with a simple white slide, maybe next time we'll keep it classy. Then the screen cuts to black. Silence. For the first time in my life, I was the one who wasn't embarrassed. They were too stunned to even look at me. I stood slowly, tucking the remote into my purse. My mother finally moved. She reached out, her voice shaky, almost maternal. Almost. Rosalind, what the hell have you done? I tilted my head and replied as calmly as I could. Oh, I just thought it'd be fun to play a family game. You know, like you guys did earlier. Just with better production value. Her face turned a shade of red I hadn't seen since I accidentally spilled juice on her wedding china when I was 8. Back then, she slapped me so hard I couldn't eat solid food for 2 days. Now? She had no slap left in her. Instead, she looked to Miriam and Phoebe, desperate for backup. But Miriam was still staring blankly at the door where her husband had left, and Phoebe was furiously texting like her job depended on every keystroke, which, to be fair, it probably did. What gives you the right? Celestine finally spat, regaining enough composure to snarl. This is psychotic. I looked at her and smiled. Says the woman who filmed me getting mocked by a 6-year-old and called it priceless. That shut her up. I turned toward the hallway. I'm going to grab Eli. We're leaving. And I walked away as they stood there, stunned. But I wasn't done, not completely. As I stepped out of the living room, I passed the hallway console table, the one with the hideous crystal vase my mother brought back from Italy and never shut up about. On impulse, I swiped it off the table with a light flick of my wrist. It hit the hardwood floor and exploded into 1,000 pieces. No one said a word. Down in the basement, Eli was still asleep in his little sleeping bag with his dinosaur clutched to his chest. The kids around him were snoring softly, none the wiser to the chaos above. I crouched beside him and gently brushed his hair back. Time to go, baby, I whispered. He stirred, blinking sleepily. The party's over? Yeah, I said. The best part already happened. He nodded, trusting me completely. I helped him into his sneakers, wrapped his blanket around his shoulders, and picked up the empty bag we came with. As we walked back through the house, I could hear hushed voices, urgent and ugly. Someone said reputation, someone else said lawsuit. My mom was saying my name over and over like she could summon control back with it. I didn't stop. I didn't say goodbye. I walked right out the front door. The night air felt thick and still, but for the first time it didn't choke me. It filled me. I strapped Eli into the car seat and sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel for a full minute before starting the engine. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. That was legendary. Deshaun. I didn't reply, just smiled to myself and pulled away from the curb, leaving the glowing windows of my mother's house behind me. But the fallout? That was just the beginning. Driving away that night, I didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. It was quieter than that, calmer. Like I had finally closed a chapter that had been open too long. For the first time, I didn't care if my mother approved of me. I didn't care if Miriam thought I was embarrassing, or if Phoebe believed I was beneath her. I had shown them who they really were. I wasn't proud of every detail. I won't lie about that. The truth is, revenge isn't as clean and satisfying as the movies make it seem. There's always a little mess. Always a little ache. But damn if it didn't feel like justice. By the next morning, the fallout had begun. I woke up to 47 messages across different platforms. Texts from cousins, voicemails from my mother, even a few emails from people I hadn't heard from in years. The family group chat? Imploded. Celestine had left the group. Phoebe had changed the name from Family Forever to Family Shambles. Miriam sent a voice note saying, "Thanks for ruining my marriage, Roslyn. Hope it was worth it." I deleted it without listening twice. Then came the real blowback. And oh, did it blow. Miriam's husband filed for separation. Apparently, he'd been suspicious of her fitness trainer for 4 months. The video from the party was the confirmation he needed. He moved into a rental near Rye the same week. Phoebe? Her company's HR department got an anonymous email with a video attachment and the subject line, "Your senior VP's thoughts on diversity." The company put her on immediate leave pending an investigation. By the end of the month, she was quietly let go. And my mom? She wasn't invited to the annual Larchmont Women's Gala. Apparently, the kind of people she hung around with didn't appreciate being exposed as backbiting hypocrites. A few of her social club friends cut her off entirely. Her reputation as the classy, sharp-tongued matriarch became that woman whose daughter nuked the family from inside the dining room. She called once. Just once. The message was brief. "You made your point. I hope you're happy. You embarrassed me in front of my friends. I don't know what you think you've gained, but you've lost your family." I didn't respond. Because she was wrong. I hadn't lost my family. I had finally seen them for who they were, and walked away with my head high. A few weeks later, Deshaun dropped by to see Eli. He brought pizza and let Eli jabber about dinosaurs and gravity for 20 minutes straight. While Eli built Lego towers on the carpet, I thanked Deshaun. "I didn't think you'd help," I admitted. He smiled, shook his head. "You didn't ask me to blow up their lives, Roz. You asked me to tell the truth. That's all we did." That stuck with me. We told the truth. I started making small changes in my life after that night, not because I had to, but because I finally wanted to. I enrolled in an online program to finish my degree in literature. Just one class at a time, paid out of pocket. I reconnected with a few old friends I'd distanced myself from out of shame. I even picked up a side hustle editing manuscripts, something I'd always wanted to try but never felt good enough to do. One Saturday morning, while I was sipping coffee in the bookstore before opening, I got a card in the mail. No return address. Handwritten in cursive. Inside was a check for $1,000 and a short note, "This is not forgiveness. This is recognition. Do something good with it. M." It was Miriam's handwriting. I deposited the check and used it to pay for 2 courses that fall. The final piece of revenge, the truly satisfying one, didn't come until November, 4 months later. The Larchmont Gazette reached out to do a feature on independent bookstores. They interviewed me. Took pictures of me and Eli between the bookshelves. The reporter asked me about my favorite reads, my thoughts on motherhood, and what it's like raising a child without a big support system. I told them the truth, sometimes family isn't about who raised you. It's about who stood by you when you had nothing left. The article went viral locally. Customers poured in. Online orders increased. People started leaving little notes in the tip jar, "You're amazing. I read your story in the Gazette. Your courage inspired me." One afternoon, my mother walked in. She stood there, dressed in a muted gray coat and sensible shoes, like grief had drained the color from her closet. She didn't speak right away. Just looked around the store like she was in a museum. Finally, she said, "I read the article." I nodded. Most people did. I didn't know how alone you felt. I raised my eyebrows, unsure if she meant it or if she was simply embarrassed again. She looked tired. Really tired. Then she added, "You were right. It wasn't for the kids. It was never really for the kids." I wanted to say so many things. But instead, I said the only thing that felt right. "You don't have to say more. I'm building something new now. Eli and we're okay." She nodded slowly, then turned and left without another word. That was the last time I saw her in person. It's funny how revenge doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes, it's a quiet bookstore filled with laughter. Sometimes, it's a child who feels safe. Sometimes, it's waking up without dread. Sometimes, it's being alone and feeling whole. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply no longer needing them at all.